Lesson 10, Backyard Discoveries. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to your parents telling you there was a treasure buried in the backyard. Would you be shocked? Excited? Maybe you would already be out the door with your rubber boots and a shovel to seek it out. Treasure hunting carries with it a certain thrill that can be quite appealing. It might be a rare seashell that the tide carried in, a geode hidden in an unassuming rock, or something as impossible sounding as a buried coin or jewels. The common, discarded, and humble things of this world can actually be some of the most beautiful, since beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Although the saying is finders keepers, we've been learning throughout this unit that is not always the case. Different regions have different rules about what belongs to the nation or state versus what can be owned. In Canada, for example, even on your own property, you do not own what is under the top layer of topsoil. While in some states your land is yours from border to border and topsoil to bedrock. Our fossil hunter today found treasure on his very own land. Let's take a closer look at this story and see what happened to his discoveries. Marshall Fletcher. Marshall Fletcher was born in Massachusetts in 1834. He worked as a shoemaker when he was younger and later as a hospital steward during the American Civil War. After suffering injuries to his spine and severe post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, a mental condition that occurs after a highly traumatic event, he was discharged from the Army and left to pick up the pieces of his life. During his service, however, he met an incredible woman named Amanda Farnham. She was dedicated to her patients and skilled at her work, heralded by many as a hero. After the war, the two were married and settled down on 150 acres of farmland in Colorado to raise their family. To help pay the bill, Amanda Fletcher opened a boarding house where guests could come and stay for meals and a temporary place to live. From shoemaker to hospital, steward to farmer, Fletcher was about to have another dramatic turn of events. The Fletcher children were out for a walk one day with their school teacher. When Sarah, the eldest, saw some bones sticking out of a cliff, they turned out to be a dinosaur bone, and they were sent away to none other than Edward Cope, who was deep in the thick of the bone wars with Othniel Marsh, his rival. Marsh found out about it and sent his team to stay on the Fletcher boarding house to learn more. Here begins a connection of so many of the people we have learned about so far. Mudge, who was already in the Colorado area inspecting the Morrison Formation, was one of the first on the scene. Arthur Lakes came with him, the man credited with finding the Dilophosaurus fossil we learned about in Lesson 7. Samuel Williamson, who also worked for Marsh, was the American paleontologist who helped teach Barnum and Brown and was a great advocate of Fletcher's work after he was sent to help problem solve the delicate nature of the fossils found. Who could have guessed that a ranch in the middle of Colorado would become a focal point in the history of this state? It was one place where many different fossil hunters and paleontologists connected over a series of years, all working for one man to help him win a war of personal vendetta and professional pride. The Marsh-Fletcher Quarry, today known as the Marsh-Fletcher Quarry and then known as the Fletcher Quarry, was built with a variety of sheds, an outhouse, and platforms to help reach the various layers of sandstone. Fletcher learned quickly how to excavate, carefully package, and write down his observation to send to Marsh along with his finds. The work was frustrating and slow, impeded by floods, weather, and the crumbling condition of the sandstone. The men Marsh had sent eventually left, and the work came to a halt. However, Marsh and Fletch wrote letters back and forth to one another, and it was about a year later that Marsh asked if Fletch would consider reopening the quarry. Fletch was not paid very much. A lot of money went to support workers on the ranch so that he had the time to excavate and package the fossils himself. Despite the frustration, over 60 different species were discovered here, a location later named Garden Park. Tragically, Fletcher's son died on the dig site in 1884 when he was just 14. After falling, he developed an infection called peritonitis, which could have been cured with modern antibiotics. His mother nursed him as best she could, but without the medications we have today, Emerson Fletch died. His father, also losing 3 of his children, was never quite the same after that. He was underpaid, overworked, and grieving the loss of his son. Despite this, he discovered a nearly complete Stegosaurus fossil 1 year later and went on to find two nearly complete skeletons of both the Allosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus. His later remaining child Sarah joined her father in his work. She drew detailed drawings of what he found. Marshall Fletch never really received recognition for his finds. All the credit went to Marsh, who was determined to keep his sources a tight-lipped secret from his nemesis Cope. However, Fletch was deeply admired by many of his contribution to paleontology and the dedication and commitment their entire family brought from their backyard to the museums across America. Did you know finding dinosaur fossils on your own land is not an experience unique to Marshall Fletch? Sue, the T-Rex, was discovered in 1990 and became one of the most highly contested fossils of all time. The case over who could have her bones began in 1992, and many different court battles were fought to determine who found her fossils and where. There were 4 different trials involving the person who owned the land. The Geological Research Institute that excavated her skeleton and the Sioux people who owned the reservation. It would seem the concept of the finders keepers not quite so simple as one might wish it would be. The Allosaurus. The Allosaurus was once one of the most well-known dinosaurs in the world, even more so than the infamous T-Rex. It was first made famous in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World in 1912 and is the most common fossil found in the American Southwest. In fact, in the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry in Utah, there are more than 10,000 bones mixed all together, most of which are Allosaurus bones. Of course, with different worldview glasses, there are different theories about how these bones ended up mixed together in this way. Creationists believed that herds were running away from the rushing floodwaters and the waters pushed them into the same area. Meanwhile, many evolutionists believed that they were pack hunting and became mired in mud, unable to escape. There have been so many of these fossils found that Utah named the Allosaurus their state fossil. The Allosaurus was a biped, which means like the T-Rex, they had 2 legs and 2 smaller arms that they could use to help hold or capture their prey. Also a carnivore, they were believed to eat anything smaller than themselves, though if they were hungry enough, they might have taken on larger animals like the Stegosaurus. Remember the Allosaurus fossil that was found with a thagomizer hole in the fossil? Or even others of their own kind? They were sometimes referred to as land sharks because of the numerous teeth they had that had been found, which, while shorter than their cousin, the T-Rex, were equally as sharp. If you look at the picture, you might find that they are hard to tell apart from the T-Rex we learned about. With a similar build, the key differences between these two animals are their size, the length of their arms, in proportion to their body, The Allosaurus has longer front arms, and the two small horn-like protrusions just above their eyes. The next time you go to a dinosaur museum and everyone else mistakenly runs for the Allosaurus fossil, exclaiming, "Whoa, it's a T-Rex," you can be the first to correct them. The quick facts about the Allosaurus is the name means different reptile. It was found in Colorado in the U.S., and its diet is carnivorous. The size is up to 35 feet high, and it could weigh 2 tons. And in the early days of dinosaur discovery, there were far rules and regulations than they have today. People were often taken advantage of. Money and wealth meant acclaim and fame as people grew their careers on the blocks of those working for a small wage out in the field, or, like Marianne Anning, selling their finds to make a meager living. As time had gone on, states, provinces, nations, and the judicial system have worked through more of the fine print and laid out a clear expectation and guidelines to avoid some of the legal battles and ensure the knowledge is protected. While debaters about backyard discoveries still exist, the outcome largely depends on where the fossil is found, as well as the pre-existing rules and previous cases in that region. Labor laws help protect people from being taken advantage of, and one would hope that if Fletch lived in modern times, his story might be a happier one. What do you think? Would you want to uncover a treasure in your backyard if you had to give it up to be studied and appreciated by everyone? Would recognition be enough to make it worth it? Do you think fame is a treasure that is lasting, or does it fade? Talk with your family about this, and then you can discuss it yourself. That ends lesson 10 for today. Have a good day.